YouTube, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, TKK.
And I'm your co-host, Lady Hera, and we are back with another video.
All right, guys. So I partnered up with Lady Hera. We're going to do this video. Now, listen, I want to explain to you guys exactly what you can expect from this video. There's going to be timestamps in the description. I listened. The last time I did a review, you guys told me that I should be doing timestamps, and that's what we're going to do. So if you're following the content or have been, it is shot in chronological order. My prior video was in reference to the S95B from Samsung. Now, a couple of weeks ago, when I was making my videos about the A95K, one I've coined Alpha 95 King from Sony, I said that, you know, I'm doing a gaming review of it and I will be doing a full review of the S95B. It's because of my prior video that I'm not going to be doing a full review because I'm not ready to, because they've changed the firmware. And I'm not sure that I want to take the chance of like updating the TV that I've got in the house to do that. And so what I want to provide for you guys today is going to be a gaming review. Now, this video is going to be very interesting. It's going to have some different talking points that might seem like they're all over the place, but rest assured, if you want to watch the content, it's going to be interesting content. And again, timestamps are going to be in the description. We are going to actually be building a PC and testing the PC for the S95B for the review purposes, because it's a gaming review. I personally know that to get the most out of the Samsung S95B, you do need to invest into a gaming PC. And because this channel is all about TKK, these are all of the different things that I'm into. And so check it out. Let me know what you guys think. But right after the intro, we're gonna get right into this. All right, guys, so welcome back to the channel. Thank you. Make sure you guys support in any way you want to. We got thanks button down below. You can like, you can leave a comment for some engagement. That's the most important thing to me. And if you want to subscribe, that's cool. If you want to share, you can do all of that jazz. Again, timestamps down in the description. This video is going to have some depth to it. And I want to make this a teaching piece, right? From my perspective, this review is just going to be my opinion. And I'm going to try to shoot it in a way where I'm speaking as much about just the S95B as I can. I'm going to try not to reference like other brands and what they might do better or what this might do better, just so that we can keep the focus on this TV specifically. We'll get to the TV later in the video. This part of the video is going to actually lay way to us getting into building a PC. Okay. Now, this PC is actually being built for Street Fighter 6. Okay. That game is going to be a healthy piece of my gaming channel that I'm going to start producing content for in 2023. And I'm going to be redoing one of my arcade cabinets strictly for this. This PC, however, is going to have the components that are good enough for me to be able to get a great gaming experience on the S95B. Hence, I'm going to be using it on there instead of the 4090 build that I currently have. Now, I'm not going to be doing this build. Lady Hera is actually going to be building this PC. And so in your next transitions, you'll see me, or you'll see her building the PC with me holding and directing. But let's just talk about some of the parts. The case, this is a great case. And I think this is a great opportunity for you guys. If you're console gaming, that's totally fine. I know consoles are convenient. They're just like, you can turn them on, but there's ways you can make the PC do that too. And some of you may struggle with the parts, and that's totally fine. My recommendations for this build is just going to be based on the fact that this is all equipment that I really had laying around, minus the case that I just ordered, which I've had this case before 2 times over, I think, but I digress. This is the NZXT H1 case. It's designed to look similarly to an Xbox Series X. It's taller, it's wider, but it's got that vertical, you know, look to it. It's going to look really sexy when you guys see this. The cool thing about this case is that it features not only the case, but it features the power supply unit, which is 750 watts. It also features a liquid cooled system, something that is self-contained, that you don't have to manage. It's just really plug and play when you think about it. Okay. We're going to be using this MSI motherboard. This is a B560i, not anything too crazy, but in this case, you do have to have a mini motherboard. So an ITX is what, you know, we call it in the PC realm of things. This board is going to fit in there nice and snug, perfect fit. For RAM, we're going to just do 16 gigs, 3200 megahertz. Again, this build ultimately is going to be designed for Street Fighter 6, Mortal Kombat, Tekken, all fighting games. It's going to go in my arcade cabinet. that's going to be a whole new project that's going to be coming. But if you guys are interested in that type of stuff, I do have a backlog of content for you to watch where you can just kind of see me going from A to Z, pretty much with what I currently own. I'm tearing it down. Anyway, 16 gigs is going to be sufficient for me to be able to play fighting games in a 4K space, because the BenQ Morbius monitor that I featured on the channel earlier in the year is going to be used for this project. We got one hard drive that's going in here. It's a 1 terabyte Samsung SSD. I should be able to hold 50 fighting games. Now, I know some of them are larger, like your Tekken 7. I think that was like 50 gigs or whatnot, but most of your fighting games are going to be really small. So the way I'm going to fit this drive is going to be to have fighting games and some emulation, Fight K specifically, and that's going to be adequate there. To push the graphics, we're going to be using an MSI, right? MSI. I really like for my things to mix and match. But we're going to be using an RTX 3080 graphics card. This is a 9 Ti. This is a Ventus 3 fan card. This card is nice and beefy, and it's going to be able to produce some nice gameplay, as you'll see later in this video. On the S95B, I'll get it set up with like some God of War, some Spider-Man, some single player titles. But for fighting games, again, it's going to be more than enough. And then to process everything, I've got a 10th generation i7 laying around here. This is going to take care of everything that I need. This processor is overclockable. Not that I would need it. I'm just going to leave everything default. This is going to be a pretty simplistic and basic system, but in the next transition, we'll get to building. All right, so we got Lady Hera here. She's got this case unboxed. Again, this is the NZXT H1. You want to give me some opinions, some thoughts on it?
So we've built in this case twice before. They did have issues with the original one overheating, but remember they fixed the part that was making it overheat. But this build is pretty simple to build in, especially if you're new at building, because everything's right there and everything is pretty much put together.
Okay. All right. I'll let you go ahead and get to doing your thing. We'll come right back mid build. So here we've got a Microsoft Xbox Series X vertically positioned right next to this case. Again, I've literally shot like a video before of this looking like an Xbox. It was before, you know, all the TV stuff I was producing on the channel, but just to give you guys a reference, because again, I want this to be a consideration. You know, when I talk to you guys about these TVs, let's get the most out of them. And I'm not trying to steer you away from like playing on your consoles and things of that sort, but you can get a case that looks, in my opinion, attractive and doesn't look so bulky, because this doesn't look like your traditional computer tower. It looks similarly to this guy. All the ports on this, unlike your Xbox, will be on the back, would be like down below. But something like this could sit on your desk if you've got a small space, or if you're playing in a living room like I am, you know, you can do something like this. And just fit this in, if you guys haven't seen my living room setup, I've got the Sony A95K kind of as my main driver. I watch, you know, my content, movie stuff, and play my games on it. But I've got the 4090 build for myself on this TV. It's the one I prefer to play on, the game on. Again, we're not going to compare one Apple to another Apple within this video. Just wanted to kind of lead into showing you guys, like, this is obviously the traditional style PC case, but the one that I'm building in, you'll see once I get it set up, it's going to be nice, small, compact. Be right back. All right, this woman's going to work. So this top piece has to be removed for the height clearance of the graphics card that we're installing, or that she's installing, because I'm not doing anything on this build. I'm just here for moral support. So, what are your thoughts so far? Any thoughts?
They upgraded it nice.
Okay.
It's different than the older versions.
Yeah, they've added a rear fan, it looks like, as well as this hub here. So that's pretty darn awesome. They've dropped the cost on it too. This has a small form factor power supply, so it's tiny but still equally effective as the big ones. And it has this big 140 millimeter fan here for the radiator. So again, this thing comes with thermal paste, everything is pretty much like ready to go. Hard drives, if you're doing the ones like what I have, let's see if I can get in here. This piece right here that I'm touching has 2 openings for you to be able to fit 2 drives, pretty much toolless. Forgive me, that's not the best shot. I'm looking at the viewfinder, but hopefully you get my point. But yeah, they added this rear fan right here for exhaust. That's pretty cool. That's probably because the graphics card goes in this area, so it vertically mounts here. So that's sucking heat out of there. So it's pretty awesome. I like what they've done. But again, this piece getting taken off because you have to raise this up to be able to get certain graphics cards in here. And this one that we're using is a tall one. All right, so giving you guys some behind the scenes. I mean, I'm shooting this in a way that I am because some of this will get regurgitated. It'll be used again for 2023 when I do the video about what this is going to be used for. But got the top off of here again. Once the graphics card is positioned here, then the top will go back on. If you're using a card that has the clearance, use PC Part Picker. They'll tell you, you know, what fits. But kind of had to try this out myself to figure it out. I was just like, man, look, there's got to be a way. And so figured it out. So this thing is stripped to the bone. So now it's time to go ahead and just fill it on up. Let's get some parts. Another thing with this RAM needs to be somewhat low profile, which this Vengeance RAM is. Don't got to overthink this. For anybody that may need help with this, again, you know, this is being done for the review space of TVs, right? And I know predominantly, you know, you guys are probably going to be playing on consoles, but if you ever get interested in doing something a little bit different, you know, this stuff isn't as hard as you may think it is. You can do it. You can do this and you can get the most out of your TV, which is the S95B. It's an amazing TV, and we'll talk about that a little bit later when we get to the actual review portion of this video. But yeah, RAM is going to be low profile because if you're touching this case, if you got RAM that's got like crazy RGB aesthetics, it's, you know, that top piece might not be able to clear. So you just want to plan these things out. The biggest thing with building a PC is planning. You said it's cute.
It is cute. All right.
We're going to watch you do this on camera.
All right.
I ain't been doing nothing but talking, running my mouth. And they, like I said, they include everything you need with this case.
Okay.
That's the processor. Think of that as the engine in a car. I like to use the analogy of that. The graphics card be the transmission. This case comes with several different brackets because we are using a 10th generation processor. We know the 1200. It also came with a 1700. That would be what you use for the new 13th gen stuff. She is installing the RAM.
The RAM always kicks my butt.
It's all good.
Oh, it does go that way.
Take your time, line it up. The click and the click. There you go. Great. The ITX are the mini motherboards, guys. They're only going to have 2 ports for the RAM. So, you know, if you feel like, you know, you're going to be doing some content creating with your build, editing, things like that, then hey, go with the 32 gig. 16 was all I needed. This RAM was like 50 bucks. Another thing, this is called the IO. On this particular motherboard, this is kind of, I don't want to use the term soldered, but it's stuck to it, which is great because, you know, the older PCs, you buy the motherboards just detached, and even some today still detached, but this piece right here, just clean. Like I said, in this particular case, the way that this gets installed, this will be at the very bottom. So you kind of route whatever you've got. In my S95B setup, I've got a hub running under the TV stand, but more on that later. All right, we're gonna wrap this up in a second so we can get to the actual review talking points of this thing, but got it together. Again, I'll show you another transition with this thing fully built, but got that graphics card in there. It's got to get that top piece put back on. So had pretty nice clearance there, man. Like 2 inches, inch and a half maybe, but yeah, so this is where all the power button and such go. So we'll get that top piece put back on. Processor and motherboard were behind here. Processor's literally about that size, so this just kind of comes down and then flips up. Well, this thing gets put together really nice. Got that hard drive right in here, right in that space right there. So that works really good there. Yeah, this thing just came together really nice. So we'll finish this up and then I'll show it to you. So better look at this. The card is in there. Some good clearance there. More than I remember. But again, we might have did it with the, I think it was the 2080 Ti. We had to take the top off. Might have been a little taller, but it's power supply. It's really clean there. You can go ahead and slide this top on there. This has to push in, so something's right there. Yeah, 'cause it has to be able to go in there too. That might go on the back actually.
I think so. I thought the graphics card should. Oh, it might.
Yeah. Yeah, 4 snaps.
I did.
Good. Good job. Good job. Snap on there.
Yeah, peel it.
All right. Very good there. All right, guys, we got this done. So we'll do all the Windows setups and all of that stuff. There's enough filler content here, but now let's get to this review. Just to start and kick this thing off, we're gonna go out to the settings. We're gonna go all settings. We're gonna go support, and we're just gonna look at software update. We don't need to go any further here. The current version that I have is 1420. Now, listen, guys, what I will tell you if you are watching this and if you are just like, hey, look, is this the TV for me? My recommendation is that if you buy this TV and if it has a prior iteration of firmware on it, leave it there. When you buy this TV, my recommendation is that you support yourself with applications and things of that sort with an external device. What do I mean? What I mean is use your PlayStation 5, use your Xbox Series X as your Netflix and your Hulu and your Amazon and your Plex and whatever. Don't use this TV to use apps. Don't connect this TV to your network if you are on a prior version. This TV today is not the same TV that it was. There's some things better about it, some things not so good about it. But prior versions unlocked a level of detail that this TV no longer is capable of having. That being said, let's get to some settings. As I said, this is going to be a gaming review. So I'm going to take you guys just through some quick settings because I plugged this to a new port on the TV that has not been like soft calibrated. And I'll just kind of walk you guys through some of the things that I look for when I want to set my TV up, right? So I have not had a lot of experience with this current firmware build, but at default, this is where everything is, okay? So number one, brightness is definitely too high for me. I don't like my brightness turned all the way up. We'll go about 30. Contrast is at 50. Some people like that, that's cool. I'll go 35. Sharpness at 10 is cool. Color at 25. I'll go at about 35 for color. Not gonna mess with that. I will go down to contrast enhancer. For right now, I'll turn this up on high. And color tone, Not a fan of cool or standard. Personally, I like a warm 1 or warm 2. The preset, the HDMI that I have for movie content is going to be on a warm 2 for this because it's strictly gaming, the warm 1 base. Essentially, it's going to remove a lot of that blue and make it more of an overall, greener look. Shadow detail, I don't like to touch. This is a nice feature. You can increase some blacks, but honestly, it crushes some blacks. I won't talk about another model of TV that, in my opinion, does shadow details better, but I don't like to mess with shadow details. Color space, set it normal. You can take it to auto and just kind of see how it changes things. I like the native space, right? So hopefully my camera's picking that up. Native is going to be a good base for me. Peak brightness. This is a very important one. You can set this on high. That's going to definitely give you some brightness to the TV. So those are some pretty good settings right there to have. If you're playing this thing on a console, gameplay mode settings, you want to turn game mode on. That's what we're really focused on. TV does a good job of explaining things to you. Again, dynamic black equalizer. Don't like to touch it. Feel free to modify things as you like, but I'm just giving you guys a real-time, setting for me. I do like to turn the HDR10 Plus gaming feature on advanced. Game HDR can be turned on if the source can support that. So before I can turn this on, I have to make some settings on the actual PC changed. Because we're gaming on PC, there's some settings we need to change. So just gonna right click. First things first, gonna go to NVIDIA control panel because I'm using an NVIDIA graphics card. Automatically, your PC is gonna default at 2 different resolutions. The top is gonna be 3840 by 2160 native. This is more of the TV space 4K. We wanna be down in the column where it says PC, right? So up top, you've got this, and then down here, we've got this. So where we wanna be is here, because when you're set here, you're gonna see all of these options. So from 23 Hertz all the way to 60 Hertz. None of those are attractive to me in the gaming space. We wanna go down to PC. When we set this here, you've got 2 options, 100 Hertz and 120 Hertz. TV does have the ability to do 144 Hertz. We'll cover that. I have made content on it before. I'll card it in if you wanna see that separate video, but I have, come to understand it a little bit better, and so we'll cover it in this video. So we're gonna go to 120 Hertz. We're gonna apply. Computer just kind of blacks out, goes back, asks us if we wanna keep that. And now we do have truly 120 Hertz as an option. While we're on the subject of this, with the S95B remote, when you hold pause and play, it brings up your game optimizer. Your game optimizer bar or game bar or whatever they wanna call it is gonna put you in a position where you can kind of test and see different things. One of the things that I want you to focus on is the FPS. It says 120 Hertz. You also see high dynamic range or HDR. It says off. You also see VRR, which is variable refresh rate. It says that it's off because I haven't adjusted and turned any of those things on. But if we go down to here and we adjust this setting to 100 Hertz, you can see that the FPS gauge does change to 100 Hertz. We want to say no. We want to go back to 120, and you can see that it's 120 Hertz. So this is a great feature that actually works. And outside of some consoles, when you're using PC, this is going to be one of the advantages that you're going to be able to take full advantage of this feature because it's going to show you in real time what your system is doing. No need to run an application like Fraps or any kind of internal software that would be running on your PC. You can just literally let the TV do it. What it's doing is it's taking the signal from the HDMI from the source and it's able to read in real time what you are getting. Also on the PC side, we want to right click. We want to go to display settings this time. Within display settings, the first thing that we want to do is we want to turn on HDR. It's going to make colors pop. Things are going to look exactly the way that you want them to look. All of the settings that we've tapped into prior to this right here haven't really given us what we need. You need this feature to be turned on for most modern stuff. Now, some of you guys that are purists for old school games, playing games in SDR, that's cool. But, you know, if you're playing modern technology, a lot of these games have, you know, mods that have high dynamic range. That's where we want to be at. We also can go down to graphics settings. This is an important piece to be in. A couple of things we need to turn on. We need to turn on variable refresh rate. Remember, the bar on the television was not reading VRR. The VRR stands for variable refresh rate. We want to turn that on. We also want to turn on hardware accelerated GPU scheduling. It's going to reduce latency. That's just globally, it'll do that. It tells us that we need to restart the PC to do that. And so we will do that and come back in the next transition. All right. And now that we have the computer reset, one more time, we're going to right click. We're going to go back to NVIDIA control panel. Instead of touching resolution, and man, look at that blue. Man, that blue looks really good. This green looks really good too. So right now I've got the S95B just soft calibrated to give me some really good pop. And that's what you love about this TV. Okay. But what we want to look at is we want to go to setup G-Sync. We want to enable G-Sync for windowed and full screen functionality. We want to also enable settings for the selected display. Even though it's not validated as G-Sync compatible, variable refresh rate does work on this TV. We want to apply those settings. Exit out of there. Go back to game bar. And now we can see down below we have the frame rate counter giving us the constant 120 hertz or frame per second. You have high dynamic range HDR turned on. You have variable refresh rate turned on. That's what you want to do first and foremost to get the most out of this TV. And you can also make sure that things are activated. So let's just dive right into some of the things that's going to separate this TV from a lot of its competition. Holding play, going back to the game bar. When you're on a PC, this is also going to speak to how you're getting the most out of your television. You have your screen ratio, or, you know, for PC, we call it aspect ratio. You are going to have an option within this feature to modify this. So 16:9, that's your default, you know, layout of what the TV is. You have the ability to do a 21:9, which, you know, normally is going to be coined as a 3440 by 1440 resolution ultra wide. You also have the super ultra wide, the 32:9. It's essentially having two panels meshed together, right? You know, that's another great feature. Samsung does have a monitor, a slew of different monitors, but one of the most basic ones is going to be the 3840 by 1080. Again, it's 3840 by 1080. It's 1920 times 2. So that's what that would be. The cool thing about this television is that you can just hit that button. It's letting you know that it's changing the aspect ratio, gives you some animation, and voila, there you are. You have true ultra wide functionality. Now, the way that this feature works most optimal is, in my opinion, going to be if you are sitting closer to it. So in my personal opinion, the resolution modifies itself to scale down. And so if you're sitting back in that distance initially that we were talking about, you're not really getting the most out of this. My opinion is that this is collectively productivity, or, you know, for your purists that are just like, hey, I got to have ultra wide and that's what I need. If you need to be able to see more on the screen, that's going to be a great feature for you. We will toggle around and mess around with some game settings within some different games that can support this, just to kind of show you that. But this is a really cool feature that you can possibly take advantage of if you have a PC connected to your S95B. Okay, so while we're on the subject of ultra wide, you may or may not be able to see this, but I'm going to read this to you. We're going to go back to NVIDIA control panel. One of my favorite ultra wide resolutions is 3840 by 1600, which this TV natively defaults to. And it's just beautiful. I love it. I really do love it. I have an LG ultra wide monitor that has this resolution. It's 38 inches and it is just perfect. And so because obviously this panel is larger, you don't get exactly the same experience, but it's there nonetheless. This will automatically default to a 60 hertz. But you do have the ability to change this to 100 hertz or 120 hertz. Now, guys, bear in mind, depending on the titles you're playing with PC, you may or may not be able to take advantage of that fully. But we'll go back to our game bar and we can verify right here, screen ratio or the aspect ratio is 21:9. We are at 120 hertz. We don't, however, have high dynamic range turned on or variable refresh rate. All right, so let's just take a look at something really quick. Let's go back to the setting, display setting to be specific. We turn HDR on. Let's get it turned back on. We have that turned on. Let's go back to display settings again, because now we got that blue popping. Let's go to graphics settings. Variable refresh rate is not an option here, right? We have the hardware accelerated GPU scheduling there, but the VRR is not an option there, guys. So I'm doing all this not to be melodramatic, but just to kind of show you some different things, some pros, some cons. This is what's going to separate like an actual monitor. And so, you know, this is a great feature, but if VRR is something that you absolutely have to have, it doesn't work exactly the same. Now, there's going to be some people that's going to maybe come in here, see this later or whatever, and they'll say, oh, well, it is turned on. But, you know, I've tested all of this before I started filming this, but I just wanted to show you that's something with Ultrawide. And while we're on the topic of Ultrawide, because I've shot 1,001 videos about God of War, oh man, let's just take a look at this thing, right? So it started off a little weird, you know, but as soon as the game turned on, again, this is a PC specific thing. You can't force Ultrawide and you can't force this kind of refresh rate and such on consoles. So it just, this ties into the earlier portion of the video why we chose to do this. This is going to put you in a position where, you know, we can see more on the screen. So let me just go to settings within PC gaming. You know, again, I'm making this way that I am, because if you guys are not conscious of this, I want you to be. We go to display settings. We can see everything that we have here. We have the NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3080 graphics card. We have one monitor. The display, you can do either windowed or borderless. Obviously, Windows is going to have some blue bars there because it's showing the background of Windows. We're going to go borderless. You can see that the resolution changes too if we do that, because the output resolution dropped to 2560, excuse me, by 1440, which is QHD. It's another great feature about this television. It has the ability to do all the different resolutions. It doesn't miss like some of its competitors that cannot do the middle guy, but this can actually do that. But I digress. We're going to go to borderless and we're going to get the full output, which is 3840 by 1600. Now, PC, like console, is going to have some internal upscaling features. That's why you see the render resolution is lower. It's 1274 by 534. The aspect ratio set to auto. You can change that in game. Again, this is something you can do with PC. 16 by 10, 16 by 9, which gives us that. Now, we definitely wouldn't want to play 16 by 9 because we forced the ultra wide, because if we're going to play 16 by 9, we might as well do 4K. We might as well be at 3840 by 2160, getting the most pixels. And then obviously the 21 by 9, but we leave that on auto because it's going to do whatever this system has it set it, right? Some other things we're looking at, the resolution scaling. Now, this is what I was just referring to less than a minute ago. Similar to consoles, doing temporal upscaling, internal lower resolution. Personally, TKK is not a fan of it. This is, however, a lower end system. The reason that I play with a 4090 on this television is because I like to play without any of this type of stuff turned on. For the sake of the video, I am going to turn this completely off, right? Turning it off means that the render resolution is going to be increased. It's at 3822 by 1600. So again, internal resolution being lower means that you're not truly natively getting those graphics, right? And so that's just something I just kind of wanted to cover with you guys. When we go down to actual graphic settings, this is where you can kind of preset some things. I just like to turn stuff on ultra, even though, again, this isn't like the strongest system for this. If you watch the beginning of this video, I told you guys, this is designed for an arcade cabinet, Street Fighter and such. But the game is changing right in front of us, modifying the detail of the background. Kratos, his abdominal area, it kind of intensified and you were able to see that more. So I'm just doing this portion just to show you like what some ultra wide is like, right? When I play this game, I play on Give Me God of War. I like games to be extremely difficult. I don't care how much I die, how long it takes me to beat it, but this looks absolutely beautiful in ultra wide. The black bars, it being OLED, are just, they're really there, right? So very, very nice piece of technology. Now, if there was a way somehow this game could be crafted in, I don't know, like kind of how they do the Dolby movies, that would be great, where you can see no black bars, but still be able to get things in ultra wide. But this is great. Now, the way that this looks right now, unlike the desktop, you can sit back and really enjoy this. Let's just go ahead and cut this thing down. Ooh, I got something for you. I got something for you. I want to turn that on. These are those type of features. Make sure that latency is good. And we got to turn that HDR on. We didn't have that HDR on. Turn that brightness on like 60. This is all preference. I do like to crank up the contrast to 75 on this game. Now look at Kratos. Look at that. This is beautiful. Look at the colors. Oh my goodness. Stand up if you're an S95B owner. Give me a like right now. This is beautiful. High dynamic range, 120 hertz possibly. By the way, before I end this transition, man, this is beautiful. This is gaming pretty much at its finest. We'll be back in the next transition. One thing to be conscious of if you are using this ultra wide feature and functionality with this TV, one thing that I did notice is that you will catch a frame rate from the TV based on what the OS is doing. If you can see in the right of the screen, I'm pulling about 74, 72, 70 frames. I'm 70 plus frames with this game right now, whereas to my counter is reading a consistent 120, which is not accurate. So similarly to like with the consoles, I made some content earlier in the year talking about, consoles not being able to really produce like an actual frame rate that's accurate to what the game is giving you in real time. You'd expect the TV to do that. That's just something that I noticed that when doing ultra wide with this, and I don't really fault Samsung for that. It's such a new feature still. Like this year is the year that LG had it built in. Prior to this, you could do custom resolutions, but yeah, like I'm swimming through and my gameplay is super smooth, but I'm definitely not at 120 frames. I am, however, at about 80. The game looks beautiful. Highlights are amazing, but yeah, I just wanted to point that out to you guys. And so if there was any misunderstanding to what I was saying, here we are in the same exact scene as the prior transition. If we pull up our game optimizer, we can get actual frame rate reading as well as variable refresh rate. So just some things to be conscious of. The VRR does not work the same when you have the ultra wide functionality turned on. The game right now is in 16:9 running at a native 4K. No deep learning super sample or anything like that turned on. Still an incredible experience. I can already see that, in some crazy scenes, I'll probably be less than 50 or 60 frames per second. But still, I can get that accuracy. I don't need to have the actual graphics card showing me a frame rate. I can utilize the TV, which is one of the features that you love about this TV. Now, I want to talk about one thing here, right? And I got timestamps in the video. When we talk about this variable refresh rate technology, I am going to reference LG right here because, there's been this whole thing about, G-Sync working the same. And what I'm about to explain to you has nothing to do with this current Samsung firmware update. I'm really conscious of how people will catch things and will try to say things. The motion so far feels okay. But there's just like certain things that I noticed with this TV that doesn't happen with the WebOS TVs with variable refresh rate. And so certain games, like just me panning left and right, I just can see certain things that I know a lot of people probably won't pick up on because they may be not so familiar with using PCs on like larger displays. Within this TV, or within this this actual panel, some games like God of War, you know, AAA titles, I do actually like to turn on VSync. Now, I had a gentleman in one video the other day, he said, you know, you shouldn't be using VSync, whatever. You know, I know what it does, but what it does is it smooths things out. I can't rely on the variable refresh rate to give me the same level of consistency on this TV as it does on some of its competitors, namely LG. So again, just my own mention to you would just be like, you know, you play around and you see what works best for you. Now, keeping in mind, the TV is going to be, you know, locked at whatever you lock it at. We have the background set on 120 hertz. So if the game is able to do it, VSync is certainly going to do it. Now it's going to cap it at the max that the screen can refresh at, but that's totally fine for me because I don't really need to go beyond 120 hertz on this TV or any other TV that I own. So again, these are just things that I want to mention to you guys. We're going to move on to another title and some more talking points. All right, so talking about the input lag on a TV is definitely something I love to do. The game I've got in front of me right now is Dragon Ball FighterZ. It's a game I absolutely love. I like Dragon Ball just as a collective. I like Dragon Ball, right? And so within playing this game, you know, it puts me in a position where I can just have a good time, right? I play it with my son and, you know, we'll fight each other all the time and we have a good time doing that. But when it comes down to playing this TV, some of the raw numbers are just remarkable. They're really good, right? So a lot of the guys that play in a tournament space with fighting games specifically, they'll play a 1080 60. That's like been a thing for a long time. You know, a lot of the older Evo tournaments, man, this looks really good. I'll show it to you in a few. Looks really good, but yeah, so this thing, the numbers on this are just absolutely crazy. We'll focus on game mode. And with game mode 1080 at 60, you're at 9.9 milliseconds, which is about as fast as the A95K is in 4K at 120. At 1080p at 120, so you know, for those shooting games that you might want to play, if you just get like the lowest latency, you're at 5.3 milliseconds. It's crazy, really good. At 1440p, which is, you know, your middle resolution, again, it's a PC thing, or the consoles can do it now too. You are at 9.9 milliseconds, so literally the same as looking at 1080 at 60. You can do 1440 at 60, so higher resolution, and still get the same exact input latency. Dropping your 1440 or taking it up to 120 hertz, you are again matching 1080p at 5.3 milliseconds, so just fantastic. When you go to the 4K space, you're at 9.9 milliseconds. So again, doesn't change. 4K 60, 9.9 milliseconds. And then again, dropping it to, or increasing it to 120 hertz, you're at 5.4 milliseconds. It's absolutely ridiculous. What I like about it is that it can maintain the consistency. Let me kick some ass. That was nice. That was butter. It can maintain the consistency through all different resolutions and refresh rates, right? That is really, really good, man. But what I would tell people is that most gamers are not going to, number one, play on a TV this large. It's really large and it's hard for a lot of people that play in the competitive space, like for money, even if you're gaming online. A lot of people are not going to use it in this way, right? I use a 55-inch on the desk. C2's on the desk for me, and so you know, I'm familiar with it. I'm really well acclimated with that. You know, the numbers between the let's just say the A90K, A95K, because that's like same caliber of TV, but at the higher end of the spectrum in terms of price point, down to the C2. They're all within reason in the 4K space, even in the 1080 space. Going from like the 18 to 17 down to like the 9 to 10. Most people are not gonna trip, guys. Most people are not gonna. Ooh. Ooh. That was butter. I gotta show you that. Okay, here is Destiny. Now, guys, I'm not the biggest first-person shooter player out there. I don't have the time or the dexterity to really invest into the Call of Duties, the Fortnites, the things like that. But Destiny is something that, you know, when it first came out, I loved it, played it. I bought 6 Xboxes for my household so everybody could have their own console to be able to play it. Of course, this is not a game that you play multiplayer on one platform, and so yeah, I invested really high into it. I haven't played Destiny in a while. What I will tell you is this TV does it well with the colors and such. What I want to use this to cover, though, is going to be another setting that sets this TV aside from the rest. Once I get past all of this advertisement, we can do that. So let's just take a look at some game options. Let's open up the settings. We're going to go down to video, just like we did in God of War. And we've got full screen turned on, 4K turned on, VSync turned off. Frame rate cap is at 200. Quality, I like to really set my games to be at the highest if possible. Go ahead and apply those changes so that it just turns everything up. High dynamic range is turned on. And render resolution can be modified on this game, can be turned up to make it look a little bit better. Let's get into some gameplay. Right. I actually have this thing running at 144 Hertz. Now, I've turned the resolution down to 1080, and I can definitely see that things are much more grainy. But this is an interesting feature that this TV has brought us. Now, similarly to when we covered earlier with you using the ultra-wide functionality, your TV is not actually going to produce higher than that 120. You can see that. The game bar is telling us we've got 120 Hertz going, where NVIDIA is actually producing up to 159 frames. And it's because I got this thing set where it will, I don't have VSync turned on, so you can see we're getting up to 160, 168, and so forth. So let's tamper around with some settings again. Let's go to video. Let's turn on VSync. The options here are only 120. That's unfortunate because the TV screen is actually running at 144. So it's not all the way supported with some titles is what I've come to find. I can't VSync it to be 144 Hertz, but we definitely are getting higher than the 120. Now, obviously I have the game, as I just said, running at 1080, because if I was running the game at the native 4K, with this configuration in terms of hardware that I have, I wouldn't be able to achieve it. So for those of you out there that are interested in, playing these games, being competitive, and getting like a higher frame rate, you definitely can do so, because if you're playing to win, you're not really giving a damn about, this type of stuff. And then this also leads you into other features that are on like the NVIDIA side of things, like the deep learning super sample. Being able to play at a lower resolution that is upscaled is going to be a lot better than playing at the native in this instance, where, you know, somebody will tell you that, hey, you know, to get the most out of your graphics card, you should be playing with that. I prefer not to. I'd rather just play it whatever, you know, I can get. Playing at 144 hertz on a game like Destiny wouldn't be a big deal to me. I would much rather just play at full 4K and just deal with like the 85 or the 90 or whatnot that I can get without V-Sync being turned on. And so I'm going to still have not only a beautiful experience, but I'm going to get that immersion in terms of how much fluidity, you know, 144 will offer me. But this is a great feature. And in order to enable this, I did make a video. I probably carded it in already about this. Now, there's a couple things that I spoke about. There's some inconsistencies with the variable refresh rate with this. Similarly to like you using ultra wide, it just doesn't work the same exact way. And because this is not, it doesn't appear to be an officially supported feature, I can't see Samsung tweaking this. But this is another GOAT part about this particular TV, because it definitely has put us in a position, having a panel that can actually run a game natively this fast is really nice. So let me know what you guys think about that. And just to kind of show you guys, we are running at 144 hertz from the desktop. From the same settings, we have 100 hertz, 120 hertz, and 144. You pretty much just go down to custom and you can kind of create it. You can tamper around with some different options, but this seems to be the only one that's really stable. System does seem to take a little bit of a hit on colors and things like that, but everything is pretty much good enough. Like if that's a feature that you want to take advantage of, you're not going to really miss much. But like I said, the one thing that I noticed early on with trying this was that the variable refresh rate technology wasn't working the same. What I was noticing was some screen tearing, even with the G-Sync being turned on. And again, as I said, I think that ultimately G-Sync works the best, and it works more fluid with the LG panels. But you know, it certainly does work to a degree on this thing. All right, guys, I need to know what you guys thought about this video. So I want to end this by just saying, I've had this TV since its infancy, and they've changed it a lot. And so this is why you're not getting a full review about everything that the TV has to offer. However, gaming is something that we've done on it pretty regularly since day one. I've had my hands on the TV since before it made, you know, its way to any of the retailers from like big box retailer perspective. And so I've had a great 6 months with the TV. It's undergone some changes, and, you know, I've shared some frustration. I've expressed myself openly to just how, you know, things get changed. And so I know that we feel that a lot of manufacturers change things, but, you know, in my opinion, it's never been to a way where it's just like a complete different product, right? You know, the TV isn't as bright as it used to be, but interestingly enough, playing on this current build that I have with what I've showed you, the firmware I'm on, it was fine for me. I'm enjoying the motion, still enjoying the brightness, and even not having the soft calibrated settings to where I normally would play, just quickly adjusting them. Everything was just done on the fly in this video to try to make it more realistic for you. Ultimately, you just have to kind of make your mind up on, you know, what you're looking for. I think this TV is for a lot of people, especially if you're in the gaming space, especially if you're in the PC gaming space, because it's going to be like the only one that's an OLED that's this large that will offer you all the different features that we covered. So just to kind of go over those things, you do get the lowest input latency out of an OLED, technically, from the 60 hertz space, you know, all the way to the 120 hertz space. You do have the QHD functionality. So you have 1080p, you have 720p HD, 1080p full HD, 1440p QHD, and then 2160p. That's going to be the ultra 4K or the ultra high definition resolution space. So you get the run of the mill for everything, guys. So if you're into playing, you know, your old school titles, my opinion, it does standard definition really well. Though I did not feel I needed to really dive into that piece of doing this. I did shoot some content around it. I shot a lot of stuff and I clipped it down. So for whatever the duration of this video, I was too tired to get more into it. Standard definition content is done pretty well. The peak brightness of the TV is what helps with that, right? So that's an advantage that it has over like your your other OLEDs that are not your G2, your S95B. And then guys, listen, I hear people talk about how this is the only TV that really can do standard definition content justice. That's false. We know that these TVs just as a whole are brighter than they've ever been, right? OLEDs are brighter than they ever were, and they continue to get brighter and brighter and brighter. And we want a jump in brightness that is like what the S95B gave us. But then you guys see that it was modified by the manufacturer to be reduced some. Do we know what those issues were? I don't know. I covered it in my latest video, the one prior to this gaming review, but I digress. My point is, this is an amazing TV. You get the 4K, you get the 144 hertz custom setting, you get the ultra wide. The ultra wide does it well. 3840 by 1600 is a sweet spot for that. You can still do that at 120 hertz. Amazing, just phenomenal, really good. Game bar is solid. It's a part of Tizen. Tizen is, as an OS itself, I didn't really want to judge it too much because I wanted to keep this as gaming. And so speaking about the game bar, it does what it's supposed to do, especially when you're playing on PC. And it does it pretty well when you're playing on consoles too. But the HDMI signal is just limited with the Xbox and the PlayStation right now, to where none of the TVs are really getting an accurate read on what they're doing. But this is a great TV. I recommend it. I do. I 100% recommend it. So for any of you out there thinking I hate the S95B, I don't. I'm critical on things that I buy. I don't rent TVs. I don't have any problem with anybody that does. You know, some people are not going to be in a space where they'll get multiple of different units and different things like that. But, you know, me, I'm one that likes to research and buy, and I'm good with it. So that's what I got. Let me know how I did on this. Hopefully the timestamps are helpful and meaningful in getting you to where you wanted to be. And if you made it to this point of the video and you didn't watch the earlier part of the video, I think that the PC building portion of it is equally as important because it speaks to how you can get the most out of it. Now, obviously, if you have a console, you're going to enjoy your experience too, but you're going to be locked at what the developers has you set at. The PC parts that I use are a couple of years old. 10th Gen i7, we're on 13th Gen right now. RTX 3080, we're on 4090 now, right? So a couple of, years old technology, still putting us ahead, in my opinion, probably where we'll be when we get PS5 Pro. So again, if you're interested in building a PC, you go with one of these panels, man, listen, that's how you're going to get the absolute most out of the technology. Keeping in mind, since 2019, we've had TVs that can do 4K at 120 hertz. We didn't have consoles that can do it until the year later, a year and a half later, right? TVs dropped in April 2019, March 2019. We didn't get consoles until November 2020. Playing on a PC is going to give you optimal functionality. I'm not saying perfect, but optimal functionality. But yes, in the greater scope of things, that's my opinion, and I'm offering it to you. So let me know in the comment section what you thought. If you liked the video, leave a thumb up. If you're not subscribed, consider doing so. I think I do a great job of, mixing up the content, and I'm gonna catch you guys on the next video. Peace, God bless, and as I always say, Max love.